In today's episode of Project Precision, I'm remounting this fully forged and built RB2530 into my poor excuse of a Nissan R34 GTT SKyline behind me here, but not where you think. It is not going in the OEM position, and it's probably not going wherever your mind is telling it's going to go. Though to answer your questions as to where and as to why, where? Well, you can find out in the episode very shortly. And as to why, well, short answer, better weight distribution. Long answer and the bigger picture, I, Luke Jones, will be building the fastest shed-built Nissan R34 SKyline in the entire world. There, I've claimed it, I've put it out there. Now you can all go ahead and berate me in the comment section as to why that can't be done. Now, what do I actually need to do to get this engine into that car where I am wanting it to go? Well, I need to refit all the front panels, measure and mark them before cutting out the front rad support panel and wheel wells. Then I need to prep the engine and gearbox to go back into the OEM position. So then my fabricator can measure and cut what he needs to, mount the engine in its proposed new location, fabricate mounts, fabricate some sheet metal for the firewall, and then Bob's your uncle, it's all done. And I probably made that sound a lot easier and quicker than it's going to be. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's just get stuck in and get it done.
I started by fitting the Z-Tune front guard and the GDT bonnet, which I had acquired from previous episodes. I'd also been given a GDR Z-Tune front bar for free as it came from a bad mold. Though it ended up needing more work than I expected to get it to fit right, which I didn't spend much time doing. I figured it wouldn't be too crucial for this part of the build. Maybe I should have just stuck with the OEM panels for this part.
Well, it's time to remove those panels and clear the way for what's next. That's one side done. Right, so that was interesting. And honestly, all of that effort and these two pieces together barely weigh 4 kilos. Obviously, I'm not doing it for the weight reduction side of things. So this bit here will be removed as well, and then essentially we can have the radiators and the intercooler forward and on an angle more. And this is, well, just so I can tub the inside here with carbon fiber or whatever I decide to do. But yeah, you know what they say, to create one must first destroy, which is unfortunately still the phase that I'm in. Some of you are probably thinking that I'm ruining this car, and as it stands right now, you will be correct. But anyway, from here, I'm going to tidy all this up, move on to prepping the engine, ready to go in, and then I will call Peter over. So now I'm going to prep the engine by putting the adapter bracket, flywheel, clutch and gearbox on, then mount it back in the OEM position. So when Peter comes over, he can mark out where he needs to where we're going to cut into the firewall. So as you can see down the bottom here, there's no sump on this engine because it has not arrived yet. Another 3-week wait, and I just don't want to wait that long. It's not Ross Performance's fault, it's my fault. I didn't read that it was a made to order part. That just takes a long time to make. So this is actually adapter bracket that goes from an RB30 to RB26 gearbox. And essentially I just went and got some bolts from Bunnings, then I've mounted it in the exact same, I guess, depth dimensions as the actual sump itself. So we can still mount the engine, cut things and get the clearances right. So therefore when the sump does arrive, you can just bolt it straight on and Bob's your uncle. Right, I'm gonna get this thing off safely and get it back in the car. I'm knackered. As you can see, the engine and gearbox is in, ready for Peter to mark up and get ready to cut into the firewall. I've gone through and I've taken the wheels off because I had to take out the handbrake cable. I've taken the dash out again. Now I'll just have to take out the actual bar that holds the dash and the steering column, but I'm about to go out, so I'll have to do that on another day, or the day when Peter arrives. But yeah, this car is apart more. This thing looks so rough. There's so much work. Like, I'm trying to store the wheels under the bottom of the car, the dash is down the side here, the seats there. Just trying to find places to store stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna hit up Peter, see what he says. I mean, I'm comfortable to cut into the firewall, but it's probably best if he does it. Anyway, let's wait until Peter arrives. Peter is due to arrive around 9 o'clock. I'm just doing a final prep and clean of the tools and workshop, as I was doing a bit of work on the Yaris yesterday. And then we can get stuck into refitting this engine. I'm hoping that it goes relatively smoothly, but as we know, with any good project car, you find a few hurdles along the way.
When Peter arrived, we hit a momentary pause for proper assessment. The aftermarket panels weren't fitting as precisely as required, so we benched them and reverted to the OEM ones for a cleaner reference point. During the process, we also had a solid chat about the overall direction of the build and locked in a few decisions moving forward. With that clarity, we unboxed the radiator and intercooler and prepped them for a future test fit, then came to the serious stuff. Peter carefully measured and marked in the cabin and in the engine bay on the firewall, ready for the cutting. Once the engine was out, it was go time.
How do you feel about it?
Nervous again?
Again?
Pour it out. Should be alright.
But then, disaster struck.
A bit of emergency while Peter was cutting out the main part of the firewall. Something happened and he cut his finger with the grinder. It was a very deep cut too. He reckons it's close to the bone, and I'd be inclined to agree with him. So thankfully I had a first aid kit so I could patch him up. But he's headed off to get some medical attention because it's best to get that looked at, and like health and like safety comes priority over a car. So hopefully all is well with him and it's not too bad for him. And we'll see how we proceed from here. So stay tuned for that. And he's back from the dead.
Back from the dead, mate.
They patch you up?
Back again, yeah, they patched me up 3 stitches. So
3 stitches?
3 stitches, believe it or not, yeah.
You got orange stuff on your hands.
Yeah, it's all the antiseptic and stuff like that, but yeah, 3 stitches, so I gotta go back in a week, get the stitches removed, but until then,
back to it.
Back in action, mate.
Let's go.
In worst case, we've got to trim the back here, raise it up a little bit maybe.
With the firewall out of the way, it was time to shift the engine further back and get it properly aligned with the drivetrain. We went straight to using the las level to make sure everything was dead straight, both in the bay and all the way down to the diff. Sounds simple, but it took a lot more time and measuring than we expected to get it right. Once we had our reference points, Peter knocked up a set of temporary lifting mounts using an old K24 flex plate I had lying around. This allowed us to maintain the factory upright position while removing and refitting the engine. From there, it was back to removing even more material from the firewall and transmission tunnel to make room. While doing that, we uncovered something interesting. There was sound deadening and heat shielding sandwiched between layers of sheet metal of the firewall. That all needs to go. Not just to save weight, but it'll make welding an absolute nightmare. With all that sorted, we dropped the engine and gearbox back in to kick off stage 2, building the structure for the new firewall.
So where are we at, Peter?
Well, we've done a lot. We've done a lot of cutting, a lot more cutting than putting things back together up to this stage. If you sort of come around and have a bit of a look through here, you can sort of see what we've cut out in the tunnel there and that firewall section, so it's quite a large hole. We're aiming to try and move the engine back about 100 mil roughly from its factory location. There's a few reasons for it really. One of the main reasons is to give us a bit of room at the front of the car. Obviously our radiator is a lot bigger than factory. It's going to have ducting going into it and ducting going out of it to optimize cooling and things like that. Another big reason why we wanted to do that is because the engine and the gearbox is a whole big lump of weight in the front of a car. It's an iron block obviously. So any weight that we can move rearward of the front axle or as far rearward as we possibly can is going to be a good thing. So anything rearward and anything as far down as we can get it as well too. So this whole process might seem quite involved and quite lengthy, and it is really, to be honest with you, but what we'll gain in sort of decrease in roll center, so bring the weight further down, closer to the ground, bring all the mass closer to the center of mass of the vehicle.
Cut off the all drive adapter bracket from the engine. Of course, I no longer need it, as yesterday the dry sump arrived, finally. I just went through and put all the AN fittings on, and it came with some Ross Performance gloves. I'm not sure if their intention is to wear the gloves while you put it on, but nonetheless I'm going to do that anyway for the full experiment. Okay. I think this is going to be some of the easiest sounding I've ever removed. Just get an old gasket scraper, this thing's like 10 years old, and you just pry away and it comes off in big chunks.
After a few weeks, Peter was back and we got straight into prepping to build the new engine mounts. He began by cutting off the old mounts and continued cutting off any other unnecessary brackets on the subframe. While he was doing that, I began cleaning up the threads in the solid mounts ready for the new setup. With everything cleaned up, we dropped the engine back into the bay in its new position. By this point, we'd already pulled the engine in and out at least 10 times. And then Peter got to work templating the new mounts. Templating and making these new engine mounts is a slow and tedious process, however, it's definitely one you don't want to get wrong.
Right, so we're now at the stage where we're starting to actually mount the engine. We've got the engine moved back to where we want it to sit. We've cut the old mounts off. So I just thought before we go finish welding anything, I thought I'd show you guys a bit of the process on how we got from no mounts to potentially what's going to hold the engine up eventually. So we've sat the engine where we want to sit it. Everything's nice and clean and prepped on the subframe, and then we've just started with a basic cardboard template. So we just started with a flat plate that bolts to the underside of the engine mount itself, and then one by one we just build out each side of this box, I guess you could call it, this engine mount, like out of cardboard first, because obviously cardboard's easy to cut and shape. We can modify it if it doesn't fit or if we don't like the way it looks. So from that, we obviously make 2 of them, one for each side, left side and right side. From this, we then we cut the box apart, and we transfer each piece onto a piece of steel, and then we cut each piece out, and it's pretty much the same process, but then with the steel. So you end up with something that looks sort of like this. There's obviously, again, there's a left side and a right side. Mount sits on the top, and then sort of all these funky checkouts is what sort of copes the mount itself to the subframe. Tack it together. Once it's tacked together, we clean it up. Once it's all cleaned up, we prime everything out first, and then finish weld this, and then weld it onto the car with the engine in position.
I'll jump in here and touch on a few things. First one is that actually wasn't filmed, was Peter and I actually had to pull out the front subframe quickly so we could get in there and properly clean up all the old like welds and stuff from the old mounts. And second to that is we're probably thinking, why is so much time being spent, not much has happened? Well, not everything was filmed with, for example, like me messing around with the OEM RB25 Samba hat on there, messing around with the engine. I spent a lot of time messing around with the panels. I had like the OEM ones on there. Then I didn't have them on there. I took them off. Then I put the aftermarket ones on. And as you saw, they didn't fit. So I put the OEM ones back on again. Like that was just a lot of time wasted or spent, however you want to put it. Yeah, so it just, because I track my time daily, that's how I actually know how long things take. But even myself was surprised when I was calculating the time, like how is so much time being spent on it? But yeah, that's all. Anyway, let's get back to templating the firewall. So it's been a few weeks since any work was done on the SKyline. The last thing we did was the engine mounts. Peter's just arrived, and today we're going to be finishing off fabricating the new firewall. However, during these weeks of, I guess, waiting, I did find a discovery that may inhibit us from actually making the gearbox mount and cross member this episode. I'll touch on that later, but Peter's just arrived, so I'm going to pull this engine out so Peter can get stuck into making the rest of the firewall.
I just know that things are gonna end bad when my body only moves for the beat. You've been waiting for me. I'll just keep dropping it like there's no stopping it. Then walk with it. La 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 la. I'll just keep dropping it like there's no stopping it. Then walk with it.
All right, so we're here again. We're up to the stage now where we've sort of started to build a bit of a structure for what our new transmission tunnel and firewall is going to look like. So what we've done is we've just used this basically just 6mm round bar to sort of make the general sort of the shape, the extremities of what the tunnel is going to look like. And then from that, it makes it a bit easier for me to then make templates for each individual piece rather than have nothing and then just try and make something from nothing sort of thing. It gives me a bit of a baseline to start from. Then we sort of make little templates. It seems kind of silly, but we make these little sort of triangular shaped templates, odd shaped little templates, and from that we can make sort of larger pieces that I then sort of cut out into pieces that look a little bit sort of like this. We fold them up on the pan brake. That's like the top section there, and they come and fit in position like that, and it's sort of just a big jigsaw puzzle that all starts to fit together. So as we start to bend these up, this frame will then it then starts to get in the way. So we're kind of at the stage now where we've got to cut this out, and then this sheet metal will become the structure itself, and this is just for mock-up purposes. So we're going to go ahead and cut that out now and keep trucking on.
I'll just keep dropping it, like there's no stopping it. Then walk with it. La 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 la.
So we're nearing the engine reset part of this Project Precision build this episode. We ran out of daylight, so Peter will be back in a week or so to finish off the firewall. However, now I'm going to run through why this gearbox here, or bell housing, can't be used, and why I won't be continuing with doing the 370Z gearbox conversion. First reason, which was an oversight of mine, is I didn't realize that you actually have to buy a whole brand new flywheel and clutch setup for the gearbox conversion. And I've already gone through, like in the past, and bought an aftermarket clutch and flywheel, so I don't want to have to buy another one when this one's perfectly fine. Second reason is this bell housing has been machined for a 2JZ, which means it's had around like 15 mil taken off it. I knew that when I bought it off Marketplace, though I didn't think that it didn't compute that it would cause an issue when it came to actually mocking it up, which is what the whole purpose of this thing was for, which now I can't use that for. Now, even if I was to rebuild it and use this gearbox, it still wouldn't work, because the front of the bell housing is like 15 mil shorter, which means if we were to make the new cross member and mount for the gearbox, if we were to then, get rid of this and then buy an actual brand new one, or literally any other CD series gearbox, it would not fit, which means it would be a waste of time and money. So in the pursuit of not wasting any more time and money, even though I'm down $1,600 from buying this gearbox and adapter bracket, I will now be removing this and will hopefully selling it, or it's going to become a shed decoration. And I now need to source an RB25 gearbox. So I'm going to do that now, though I'll cut you through to finish off the firewall. How good are cars?
A few weeks later, Peter was back and got stuck into finishing off building the new firewall.
Only getting started when it's midnight, keeping it tight if a nigga wanna go to war. It can get dark but we stay bright, coming like a knight, it's on sight, ever touch my sleeve. Niggas around there wanna disagree when it's clear that I'm speaking facts. Man like me, you know I'm proactive, never gonna stop till I see the big man's on flats.
Hop on the front door, it's like midnight. Don't use your grip cause you might fall out again. Off-white whip, need for speed, I'm not switching the lane. Pick up the pace, roll like that and we're back to the base. Back to the base.
We finally got to the end. Well, to the end of, I guess you could say, stage one, the core of the main sort of engine and firewall work. So yeah, started to take a little bit of shape, as you can see. Engine mounts done, Firewalls for the most part finished, all seam welded. Starts to give you a bit of an idea of the overall shape of it, like we sort of spoke about earlier with the cardboard templates and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. It gives you a bit of a visualization of how far back the engine's actually moved. Pretty happy with how it's turned out. Nice and neat and tidy. Not fully finished just yet. Still needs a little bit of dress work and stuff, but the main sort of the rough fabrication and grinding and cutting sort of done now. So car will go away to have other things done, and then we'll come back in a little while and sort of get back into it and do more detailed work along with obviously all the rest of the stuff in the car that's got to get done.
So, would you do it again?
Would I do it again? Yeah, I probably would do it again. There's a couple of small little things I'd probably do maybe slightly differently, but for the most part, I'm really happy. I sort of as you sort of do with these kind of things, I had a vision in my head, and just slowly but surely you piece it together and yeah, it turns out how you want. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy with how it's turned out.
And just like that, kind of, after months of work and over 60 hours spent on the car, the engine relocation is finally done. The progress took longer than expected, and it was far more involved than I could have ever imagined, but thanks to Peter, we made it happen. The plan originally, this was going to be a K24 swap. Yes, that's information I probably shouldn't have left out, though it would have been the first in Australia and second in the world, which would result in better weight distribution and, well, I guess, going against the grain. But in the end, I came back to the RB. Why? Honestly, one, I just love the sound of an RB. I mean, who doesn't? And two, the K-swap would have ended up blowing out my budget, and at the rate I was going, the car wouldn't have been finished for years, or honestly, decades. And let's not forget, those 60 plus hours don't even include all the time spent working on the K24 that never made it in. Now, you would still be correct in saying that this car still does not look like much, but what we've done in today's episode is one of the biggest steps in the entire build.
Now, I would be lying to you if I said that I'm sad that this stage of the build is over. However, I'm not, as it took way longer than I wanted it to. However, nonetheless, stage 1, or by technicality 0.75, as Peter and I discussed, is complete. It's 0.75 because the gearbox mounts are not done. Now, in saying that, we could have moved the engine further rearward, further than 105mm, which is what we've done, but that would have meant things like buying new manifolds, waiting for them to get made and arrive, and that would have affected things like driver position and the location of the gear stick, as I'm still will be running a normal gearbox, not a paddle shift sequential. So, stage 2, what does that mean? Stage 2 will be the roll cage install, doing the driver position and other safety items like nets and harnesses, getting all them set up. And well, for those of you who've also missed it, 15 days ago, as today is day 350, I announced that I'm giving myself 1 year. That's 365 days to become a race car driver. So what does that mean? It means I need to get myself and this car race ready. So that's the 27th of May next year. I need to be ready, and this car needs to be together, obviously, and running to be on the racetrack. Now, also, for those of you who've been following this build for a while, or since the beginning, this was supposed to be just a time attack car. Time attack spec build only, but now it's not just time attack anymore. We're going bigger, we are going bolder, and we are doing more. However, I'll touch on that in the next episode. For those of you who are still here, I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that kind of goodness. And in the next episode of Project Precision, we'll be adding more pieces to this car. I'll see you next time. Kitcha!